Can an entire book trope be copyright protected? Let's talk to Ebooks favorite IP and entertainment lawyer, Tony, to find out more.
My name is Tony Iliakostas. I'm an adjunct professor of entertainment law and IP at New York Law School, and I have an Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok account called The IP Professor that is dedicated to all things intellectual property.
We talk a lot about what authors and publishers can and cannot copyright protect when it comes to books and manuscripts in the publishing industry. And a question that has come up this week is whether or not we can copyright protect an entire trope. These are things like enemies to lovers. This is things like best friends to lovers. It is only one bed. It is, all sorts of fantasy and sci-fi and contemporary romance tropes. Are those things that authors can copyright protect?
So the answer is going to be no. But it's going to depend on kind of what the theme of the trope is. So let's kind of use, since you brought up, sci-fi, let's use like spaceships, lasers. Exactly. Like maybe even planets, the notion of planets. All of that is very much in the public domain. There is nothing where someone has some type of exclusivity to that. Like, yes, maybe the nature of, let's say, a lightsaber is exclusive to George Lucas, but, spaceships, that's something that's in the Star Trek books, that's in the Star Trek show itself, Star Wars, Battlestar Galactica, all these different sci-fi books out there have the nature of a spaceship or the discussion of a spaceship. What the spaceship may look like is going to differ from, book to book, from story to story, but the nature of that, the nature of planets, the nature of galaxy travel, all of that, that's not something that is exclusive to one user. What should be the question in any author's mind is, what specific character have I created, or what specific storyline have I created that itself could be worthy of copyright protection? So this actually, in some weird way, this is a pretty dated lawsuit, but this actually kind of came up in a lawsuit between two comic book publishers, National Comics and Fawcett Publications. National Comics, which is now called DC Comics, Detective Comics, once upon a time had one of the most iconic superheroes of all time. Still around, you may have heard of him. His name is Superman. Created Superman as this, by day, Clark Kent, nerdy journalist that worked for the Daily Planet, and all of a sudden transforms into the superhero because, he's actually an alien that came to Earth, and he has superhero abilities. He can fly. He's super muscular. He has a incredibly impeccable chin. He can punch through walls. He is quite literally impossible to stop. But in Fawcett Publications land, they created a character that was oddly similar in a lot of ways to Superman, with a character named Shazam, who was actually formerly called Captain Marvel, ultimately became Shazam in later comics. But Captain Marvel was, again, kind of this very, very much in the similar vein. His storyline, though, was that there was an orphan boy, 13-year-old named Billy Batson, who inherited the powers of Greek mythological gods. As long as he said the words Shazam, he transformed from nerdy, scrawny little 13-year-old boy into this massive, impossible-to-be type of superhero, larger-than-life superhero with, again, incredibly impeccable chin, super jacked, can fly, can run through walls, very, very powerful, very fast. It basically was almost like a ripoff of Superman. So the Southern District ultimately went to the Second Circuit. They had to assess, did Fawcett Publications commit copyright infringement by copying the Superman character? And the Second Circuit, which, by the way, the judge for that, best name ever, judge's name was Learned Hand. I kill to have a name like that. But Judge Learned Hand said that basically the character itself is not something that would be worthy of copyright infringement, because this is like around the time in the comic book sphere where everyone was talking about everyone with like insane superhero abilities, the ability to fly real far, faster than a speeding bullet, could punch through walls, had superhuman strength. Every comic book character out there in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, the golden age of comics, articulated these common traits among superheroes. But what the Second Circuit did say was that the storylines of the characters, that's where there's something that is to be had when it comes to some type of copyright violation or copyright infringement. So eventually, Fawcett Publications was found to have committed copyright infringement because a lot of the stories that they talked about with Captain Marvel mimicked a lot of what you saw in the Superman comics. Ultimately, Fawcett Publications folded, and they actually, in a very twisted fate of irony, got bought out by National Comics. So Captain Marvel ended up getting acquired and brought into the fold as part of the family of superheroes that included Superman. But all that to say, that lawsuit, I think, articulates very well the nature of tropes, and maybe even more specifically character elements that are common in a specific genre, and whether or not they're worthy of copyright protection. And the bottom line is, in a situation like this, you're just not going to find a world where some type of trope is going to be afforded copyright protection. You can't copyright protect dragons. There are too many books out there about dragons. You can't copyright protect books that feature mermaids. There are too many books out there about mermaids. If you created a specific mermaid that has a name and has a specific storyline that someone literally verbatim rips off of your book, that's when it's a totally different story. But the essence of a mermaid, dragons, spaceships, a lot of these common elements in sci-fi, medieval, fantasy, contemporary books, whatever genre is out there, all of these are out there in the public domain, and they're not exclusive to one user. If you create a character authentically that has not been out there in the ether, that's when it becomes a totally different ballgame. But clearly here, I can't sit here with a clear conscience and say that tropes are going to be worthy of copyright protection. And for that matter, I don't think any court of law would agree with that necessarily.
And if you have other questions on what you can and cannot copyright protect as an author or publisher, now's the time to drop them. Tony's coming back for upcoming episodes, and we've got lots of great episodes on these topics in our playlist, which I will link in the caption as well. So make sure you go through those, because we may already have answers for you on your questions. And as always, you can reach out to Tony on his social media. Tony, where can everybody find you?
You can find me on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at the IP Professor, and you can check out my entertainment law podcast called End Scene. New episodes drop every Friday on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Drop your questions about the publishing space down below. Tony's coming back for upcoming episodes on the legal side, and we are dropping daily videos to help you navigate the world of publishing, from your writing to your publishing to your marketing, to make this your most profitable and most stress-free year ever. We'll see you in the upcoming episode.